Generally when we do our jobs now, we're using a single rope, mainly because a lot of our jobs are walking for a long way and we've got weight as a big consideration. But in reality, we're the last emergency service in the country to move across to two-rope systems. So it's time we changed and it's time we rethought about what we're doing. We are still allowing that option for a single rope, but what we're doing is changing our focus. So by default now, we will use a two-rope system. But you can risk assess your way into using a single rope system where it's absolutely necessary. For most of what we do though, you'll find that you can use two rope, and the more you use it, the more you'll just go to that as you go. We have used two ropes before. You have the equipment for two rope. Generally though, we only use two rope systems on a course when students are learning, and occasionally when we're bringing in a new technique, we'll go to two ropes. Now we're going to increase the equipment a lot, upgrade the equipment, so you'll just be using it all the time and it'll just be part of your normal procedure. What you've got in your kit at the moment is you've got the original ASAP. You'll probably have 2 or 3 of these in your kit for the whole team, and which isn't enough for everyone to use it, but it's certainly, it's certainly a good option. The ASAP is still current, it still works, but what we're doing as part of this process is we're upgrading it to the ASAP lock. Gives us a couple of extra features in it that the ASAP doesn't have, and makes it a bit easier to use. The main difference is between the two is with the ASAP lock, you don't need to take the carabiner off to put it on the rope. That means you don't have that risk of dropping it, and it's much just easier to use. The other advantage that it has is you can lock the ASAP on the rope so it stays in position. That's quite convenient for us, and we do use that in a few environments. As we go through our video today, I'll show you all of that in practice and show you how it goes. So this is the ASAP lock, and this is what we're going to be rolling out as we move to two-rope systems. There's 3 different models of the ASAP lock. This model here gives us the biggest energy absorber, which means that we can do a 250 kilo load. So the difference between the 3 models is what you've got here. So when you see ones with smaller energy absorbers, not the 250 kilo load. There's 2 different versions of this that does the bigger load. This particular one that we got here, this is called the Absorbica. So it's the L57 energy absorber. The new ones that are coming out, so the ones that you'll be getting issued into your group, is actually the ASAP Absorber Axis. And so it works the same way, still the 250 kilo load, it's just a newer model of that, so it will look quite similar. Okay. The advantage of having this, obviously that means we can do one-on-one rescue with the bigger load, which is no problems, and it also adds that bit of distance to get it away from you, which is quite convenient as you go through. To use the device, you can see here, so we've put our own carabiner on it. It's our standard carabiner, but what we've done is we've pinned it. That makes it a lot easier, stops that movement as we go, makes it a lot easier to use. So I definitely recommend you go and pin your carabiners on it, ready to go. So to open the ASAP lock, what you've got is we've got the two clips here. Like a lot of devices now, it's designed so that you can't accidentally open it by just moving one side. So you've got to actually grip both sides in order to open it up. When you grip both sides, you're opening it up just like your chest descender and getting it there. Then quite clearly your rope's going in here, up is up as we go through. The other component of it here that you can see where we're close up, you can see the lock button here. What that means is you can lock it on your rope, so simply putting it down and it will stay on the rope where it is. Helps in really windy conditions, and it's particularly important if you're working in one spot to use that feature. Trick is, you've got to remember, unlock it before you go through. Okay, so let's put the ASAP lock into use. We've got Cole here. Essentially, you can attach the ASAP lock into 2 different places. You can either use your sternal attachment point here, or you can use the dorsal on the back. If you use the dorsal, the problem is that he's hanging forward and he's not going to be able to rescue himself. So you very rarely use that. You might find if you're doing a course, you use that on the students as they start, just so that it's not in their face. But our standard process for the team is to use it on the sternal attachment point here. It is going to take a bit to get used to, but once they've practice it a few times, they won't have a problem as they go through. Okay, so I've got it there on the sternal, and now Cole's going to sort it out on the line. It is nice if you can do it to have 2 different colours so everyone knows what your safety line is. In some places you're going to make sure you do that, like when you're doing the treadmill or something like that, but otherwise it's just a nice to have. So he's put it on the rope, then he's going to test it, as you always will. Okay, to unlock it, he needs to push it in and release it up. So there's a few things we need to be careful about the ASAP. The biggest downfall with it, or the biggest thing you've got to be careful of, is we've got an energy absorber here that's quite long. So you need to have height between your feet and the ground. Okay, basically what you're looking for is that 3.1 metres. So on a tower or on your standard training areas, actually go and mark that. So if you have a look at our tower here, we don't really need to mark it because we know it's just under the floor, but you can see I'll put a bit of tape there so to show you that's where 3.1 metres are. So what we need to make sure is that anything below that is essentially the danger zone. Okay, so all we want to do in that danger zone is transition. So he can be climbing up through that danger zone, coming down to the ground of course, but he's not working. So if we're going to be practicing one-on-one rescues or doing our treadmills or anything, any techniques that we're doing, we're going to do it above that 3.1 metre mark. Okay, that's where you really need to rethink your training area and decide how you're going to make that and do that safely. As you start using the ASAP, there's a couple of things that you're going to have to watch closely and get right as the team rolls it out. First of all, you've got to think about how you make sure that there's no slack above the ASAP. So as Cole climbs, what's going to happen is if he doesn't manage that slack, we're going to have this big loop forming, and of course if he does need the ASAP, that's how far he's going to fall before it's actually going to lock up. So there's a few different things you can do. You can have a buddy just holding the bottom of it for those first few metres, just to help out until there's enough weight in the rope. Cole can also manage it himself by stopping every metre or so and pulling that slack through, or if it's convenient, you can simply tie your rope bag off. So just tie the rope to the rope bag, enough weight there just to help manage that as it goes. The other thing that you're going to have a watch is where the ASAP and energy absorber is and where the person's arm is. So if Cole had his arm above the ASAP and the ASAP actually locked up, what would happen is there'd be a lot of force on his arm, which can do some serious damage. So you want to make sure the ASAP is clear, there's nothing above it, no body parts above it. So either his arm underneath it like that, or over his shoulder, out of the way, is a good way to do it as well. So then it's not going to bother him at all. Okay, so Cole's just going to climb up now and just show that being managed as he goes. Basically, once he gets past that danger zone, there's going to be enough weight in the rope that there's going to be no slack forming there at all. It's just going to naturally fall through. You can see there that Cole went well above that 3.1 metre mark to do his changeover, just to make sure he's well clear of that danger zone. As Cole comes back down, you're going to have a see where his feet are. Just as he goes below the tower, that's when he's back in that danger zone. So he needs to make sure all he's doing in that danger zone is just transitioning down. That's why he went well above that line before he changed over. Another key consideration you've got to be careful about is if you're working on a slope. So a lot of your areas, your cliff faces, you might have a bit of a slope before you drop down into your cliff. This will still lock up, but it takes longer to do so. So you just need to really think about your risk assessment, and is that going to be good enough, or do you need to do things like add stopper knots to make sure they're not going to go over the edge. So again, it will work on the slope. You just need to be really careful because it's going to take a couple of metres before it's going to lock up, just because it's not steep enough to move fast enough. So as you're ascending, obviously the ASAP lock is going to be below you. As you're descending, it generally will be above you. What happens is if it's below you, then that adds to the fall distance. So for Cole here, when it's below him, he can actually fall all the way down there before it's going to lock up and come into play. That's the reason then you need the bigger clearance below you. What you can do if you're working at this point is you can actually lock it on the rope. So he can put it above him, at a reasonable height above him, and then just press lock. Okay, and now it's working there. So if he's working at this height, that fall, it's locked up instantly if something goes wrong. Okay, so your procedure will be, you're on your no worries. If you want to lock off your no worries, you lock off your ASAP. Okay, so lock off your no worries first, lock off your ASAP, do what you're going to do. You're ready to go again, unlock your ASAP, unlock your no worries, away you go. Remembering when you're unlocking your ASAP there, you're just making sure that it runs freely. As Cole did straight away, he moved that ASAP to make sure it was ready to go. So what we're going to do now, demonstrate one-on-one rescue and just showing a few different techniques as part of that. First of all, of course, because he's doing one-on-one rescue, he's going to go down undeployed. We've simply halved the rope for this one because we've got plenty of rope to do that. You can do that if it's a 50-metre cliff, halve your 100-metre rope, or you can carry 2 ropes, whatever you need to do. But certainly the easiest way, halve your rope, double stuff it in the bag, and then you're ready to go and it'll feed out as you go. Because we've halved our rope, we've still set up 2 separate anchors because there's 2 separate lines and you need to be clear and have 2 separate systems as part of that. Okay, so we've got our safety line and we've got our descent line here. You lose the advantage of 2 different colours, but it really doesn't matter. He's not disconnecting at all for this. Okay, so Cole's in position, ready to go. He's got the rope undeployed on his back. The 2 lines are just going to feed out to it naturally as he goes down, and he shouldn't have a problem, just like you normally would when you go undeployed. Okay, Cole, so head on down and let's start our rescue.
Hello, Cole here from the State Emergency Service. Can you hear me, mate? Just stay there. I'm going to get close to you and we'll see if we can get you off that line and onto me, eh?
So as Cole locks off here, he's going to add this 1 extra step. He locks off his no worries. Next thing he's going to do is put his ASAP up and lock it off. Now it's in position. If something does go wrong, that's going to come into play and it's going to be strong enough to do the load of the rescuer and the casualty. Cole's got Bob ready to go now, so before he unlocks his no worries, he's going to unlock his ASAP, make sure it's running freely. Last thing he does, as always, unlock his no worries and lower down. It's going to continue to go, run freely just as it normally would. Okay, next thing we're going to be talking about is using a belay system where the ASAP's not suitable. So particularly in environments where you're working inside and you've got that 5-6 metre type drop that you're working on, half of that would be in the danger zone, so it makes it really impractical. So an easy option is a bottom belay. So we simply have our safety line going through the pulley at the top and down connected to Cole in the usual way, and a normal working rope that he's working on there as well. We're using the MPD. It's obviously the easiest way to do the belay system. Okay, really important when we do this, we have really good communications. So I'm going to be in position ready to go. I'm going to make sure when I'm belaying that I'm always watching Cole on the rope, and I'm going to have good talk to him. So I'm ready, Cole, when you are.
Okay. Ready on belay?
Ready. I'm always going hand over hand and I'm always watching Cole. Okay, he's at the top. I'm going to come in, lock off. Locked off. Just going to keep my hand on the brake. So I've just parked it, I'm not tying it off.
Alright, I'm preparing to descend. Ready on belay?
Okay, Cole, I'm ready on belay.
Okay.
Just the alternative with that, of course, is our top belay. So again, we've set up with the MPD. Cole's just going to go down, change over, climb back up again using the MPD. Okay, same process, good communications. Ready on belay when you are, Cole. Our final option here is using the no worries as the belay device. Obviously this is not our ideal device because there's a lot more friction in it, so it's a lot harder to use. Of course we've got a lot more of these than we have of the MPD, so sometimes you're just going to use that. You would have done this in the course, but probably not very often afterwards since then. Okay, so first thing we got, just moving out, of course, we need to give him some slack. So we're grabbing it by the pin and feeding it through, so Cole can move out a bit. So again, always keeping my hand on the brake. You're right, but until he gets some weight on that device, it's going to be hard to feed through.
Okay, I'm ready to ascend.
Ready? So as Cole was ascending, I was able to keep up simply because of this ascension pin. All I had to do was pull down to keep that slack out of the system as he climbed. If you don't have the ascension pin in your no worries, you might need to redirect the rope through an extra carabiner so that it's going the right way. You'll find that's a lot harder though, with a lot more friction to keep the slack out. So it's definitely better to use the versions with the ascension pin. Just remember another option that you've got if you're online, something happened to your ASAP, you dropped it, broke, whatever, you've always got your prusik, and you can use your prusik as a backup if you needed to. So obviously it's not that great because you've only got small movement, so you're going to have to go down a bit, stop, reposition in your prusik, go down a bit, stop, etc. So not brilliant, but in a pinch is going to get you out of trouble if you need it as a backup. So that's just a quick summary of some of the things that you're going to have to consider as you change over to the 2-rope system in your groups. Just make sure before you start, you go and have a really good read of the information, look at the videos about how to use the ASAP lock. Make sure you're totally familiar with it before you start, and everyone gets that introduction to the equipment. Make sure you rethink about your normal training areas. So have a good think about where your normal training areas are. Make sure you've thought about that height and how you're going to implement that. If you're working in a low area, that you've thought of some of those options that we've thrown at you today. There are other options out there, so if you're stuck or you're not quite sure how to implement it, just get in touch with me or one of the other senior trainers so that we can help you talk through it and set your system up so that you're comfortable when you start.